Wakey, hello, good morning. Many thanks indeed for joining us here on the Morning Prime. Another week, another day that we meet here on the Morning Prime. It is, of course, a Monday, and every Monday we have a standpoint coming your way, where we get a critical analysis of the political weeks that have been so far, knowing that past week we had the demonstrations. Now it has been ramped to 3 days, and people, of course, are saying they have trepidations and fear on what is going to really happen to the economy. KRA has not really hit its target as far as the revenue collection is concerned, falling way short with over 500 billion shillings. And of course, that also really portends when we look at what is happening, especially with revenue collections and the target, and of course, the Finance Act that is meant to boost that. That is a big blow to Kenya Kwanza administration. We shall be looking at also the contentious bill, the Maandamano bill, as far as the protest is concerned, and what experts are saying that this is infringement to, of course, the right to protest, a violation of the human rights as it is. And things are not looking well as far as the economy is concerned. We are now teetering on the edge of course, the gloom of it, and that is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily today, that we are now in the red zone. What does it portend for you and for me as a Kenyan as far as, of course, the cost of living is concerned? But before we head there, let's see what we have fresh off the press today. And it's all about the protest that is headlining the bold paper today, the Standard. And it says Kenyans brace for tough protest week. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard today. Kenyans brace for tough protest week. Remember, that number has been ramped up to 3 as it stands right now. And so you need to, of course, get all the gritty details on what will really happen and where you're supposed to look out for your safety as far as the protest is concerned. This is all about demo anxiety. As Mayor has declared, it will hold demonstrations from Wednesday to Friday this week as Kenyans push for a lowering of the cost of living. But the move comes at a cost. Business will be paralyzed in many parts of the country, and this story continues on page 4 of the Standard this morning. That is what we have as a headline. Also, Mudavadi puts a tight leash on parastatal bosses. That is a story that you want to follow on page 14. Now we'll have, of course, an inspector who will be inspecting the parastatals to make sure that they are up to par as far as the KPI are concerned. And that is the story that you want to follow on page 14 of the Standard this morning. Also, professional bodies to keep off vetting of varsity courses. That is another story that you want to follow inside the Standard today on page 12. Elite footballers return to their African roots. That is also another story that you want to follow on page 38 and 39 of the Standard today. It's time for Africa, and this is a telling picture where we can see President William Ruto chatting with Comoros President Azali Assoumani, who is also the chair of the African Union, and African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina at the sidelines of the AU Summit in Nairobi yesterday. The story is tucked away on page 3 of the Standard this morning. Also, police, 3 friends hold clue to savage Ruai killings is another story that we want to follow on the front page of the Standard there, but is on page 15. That is a story that you want to follow there. And health and science of thrills. That is what we have as a pull-out magazine inside the Standard as well. This is how the Standard looks this morning. The Daily Nation, a drinking nation. That is what we have as a splash this morning. If we don't act now, a whole generation will be wiped out. This is what the Deputy President Gachagua is warning. There is a crisis inside Kenya's big alcohol problem. 12.7%, that is legal alcohol. 5.4%, that is a chang'aa. That's, we have traditional liquor at 7%, 4.1% portable spirits, 19.4%, at least one type of alcohol. And all this is adding up to 27,400,000 and that's 42,214. That is a population aged between 15 and 65 who consume alcohol. 48.6% of the total population. Almost half of the population is on a drinking stupor. Love for tipple. For a country whose vast population is protecting over the high cost of living with prices of basic food commodities going through the roof, the rate at which alcohol is consumed by millions tells a different story, one of despair and depression. And many jobless young people are fast falling into the alcohol trap, bringing pain and misery to their families. How do we untangle them from this menace? That is the abiding question. And you can follow this report on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, there's a lifetime use of alcohol for the population aged 15 to 65 in percentage has been also broken down for you here. Background characteristics, at least one type of alcohol. We have the age group of 15 to 17, 3.7%. The age of 18 to 24, 17.3%. The age of 25 to 35, 22.2%. 36 and above, 21.3%. In regions, Nairobi is leading at a 23.7%. And we have Central following there, 20.3%. Coast, 23.9%. That actually should be the leading one, 23.9%. We have Eastern, 15.5%. We have Nyanza, 20.6%. Rift Valley, 16.7%. Western actually, 29.3%. And that's how it's panned out. Northeastern, no one is drinking in Northeastern. And because, of course, this is of the religious persuasion that we have in Northeastern, where the Muslim community drinking is not allowed. Law student protest over examination failure and receipt dates. That is a sad story. Kenya School of Law students protest to the Council of Legal Education over the failure rate in March 2023 exams and disparity in the examination and course content. This story continues on page 8. And the summit, Ruto uses Africa Union meeting to push for reforms. President William Ruto yesterday called for reforms at the African Union to make it more effective, avoid duplication of roles, and turn it into an investment hub. That is a story that you want to follow on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. Week of protests. Will Ruto Raila strike deal? That is a probing question. Make or break, as Mayor Chief Raila Odinga and President William Ruto have stood their ground, with the former insisting the protests were within Kenya's constitutional rights, while the head of state has warned that his administration will not condone any such demos. The results of a 3-day protest could, however, spell doom for the country. But there is still time to avert looming turmoil. That is a story to want to follow on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. This is our looks. Let's see what the star is holding for us. Now, Uhuru is linked to 40 million shillings as a mere protest budget. That is what the star is holding for us this morning. Ex-president's office family denies opposition funding claims, and Ruto accuses Kenyatta and Raila of sabotaging his government using demos. That is the story you want to follow on page 6 of the Star this morning. And Ruto says Agenda 2063 to deliver a prosperous Africa. You can see him holding court there with Egypt President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on the sidelines of the 5th Media Coordination Meeting of the African Union Regional Economic Communities, Regional Mechanisms, and the African Union member states at the United Nations Complex, Gigiri, Nairobi. This story continues on page 8 of the Star this morning. Also, transition. Merab covered health agenda with passion. Last Friday, Merab promised a cousin of banter and laughter on the next day's visit. Her relatives were to visit her at 10 a.m. on Saturday at Aga Khan Hospital. That was not to be. She died in sedated sleep at 4:15 on Saturday of sickle cell anemia, aged 31. She had worked for the Nation Media Group for 9 years covering infectious diseases. And this story is on page 3. Our deepest condolences to our colleague Elizabeth Merritt there, my former colleague at the Nation Media Group. And we wish her family, of course, our deepest sympathy and sincere condolences as well in this trying moment where we miss one of our colleagues, Elizabeth Merritt. That story continues on page 3, and journalists continue also to pay their tribute for our fallen hero there. Shabab in new recruitment drive to boost numbers. Al-Shabaab militants are recruiting foreigners from neighboring countries. A few Kenyans joining security officials have said. 2 Tanzanians were arrested in Garissa last Wednesday while on their way to join the militant group in Somalia. It was the 3rd such arrest of foreign will-be recruits in a month. Security officials said the number of Kenyans flocking to Somalia has declined. And this story continues on page 2 of the Star this morning. Drums of war as Ruto, Raila allies brace for fresh confrontation. This is the anti-government demos, and we can see how they came out in force last week. This story continues on page 4 and 5. This also occasioned a meeting, a parliamentary group meeting at State House. That is the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament and legislators who met on Saturday to actually discuss this particular issue that has become very, very controversial right now. And we can see what is headlining the front page of the Star, that Uhuru is being linked to this 40 million shillings as a new protest budget, which they have starkly denied. You can follow the story inside the Star this morning. People Daily. Why imported cars will cost you more? Why imported cars will cost you more? This is a tax pinch. Kenyans will be forced to pay nearly 100,000 shillings more for a million shillings vehicle following review of EAC levies from 25% to 35% in Kenya Kwanza move to spur local manufacturing and attract investment after entering bilateral trade deals. You can follow this story on page 4. And of course, we have the car importers decrying this particular move and saying 35% import duty is way, way above, and it will adversely affect their business. Kenya's big attraction, wildebeest migration, is on in Mara, and everyone will be flocking there to see this very important calendar in the wildebeest life, where they get to migrate for greener pastures. And this, of course, is bound to attract a lot of eyeballs as well, including the tourists. African president in Nairobi for talks, and you can see a family photo of them there on the front page of the People Daily this morning. Also, courts slow down state plans. Courts slow down state plans. You can follow all this on page 2 of the People Daily. We have no apologies for working with Ruto, vow ODM rebels, 6 of them. And you can follow their story on page 13 of the People Daily this morning. Now, the Business Daily is giving a very gloomy note this morning, where the economy is sliding into dangerous territory. It says, we have defaults, non-performing loans hit 16-year high of 14.9%. We have stocks, the Nairobi Securities Exchange trades 26% or 653.7 billion shillings in 6 months. And also in inflation, it stays above the 7.5% target for 13 straight months. It's not been abating, and this you can see is a tax burden. Economy slides into dangerous territory, as you can see. And Kenya's most expensive power plant as well revealed. This is on the sidebar. Muhoroni gas turbine supplies the costliest electricity to the national grid at 56.73 shillings for every unit, according to an official report that lifts the lead on the expensive power deals that have been passed to consumers in the form of high bills. Now, a detailed analysis by the Business Daily of the official data table in Parliament last week shows that Muhoroni turbine's price is more than double that of the second most expensive generator, that is Ibea Africa Power, which sells a unit of Kenya Power for 28.24 shillings. Rabai Power comes third at 24.04 a unit, a major comeback of the thermal power generators on the national grid after overtaking wind and hydro to become the second biggest sources of electricity in March has added more pain to consumers at reversing a 5-year trend of cutting off diesel plants that have been blamed for high power bills. That is a story you can follow also on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Car dealers protest increase of import duty to 35%. Already had highlighted that for you. And how Jumia Kenya employees stole 21 million shillings. You can follow all the gritty details on page 7. And also IFC to guide Kenya's bank loan pricing reform. That is a story you want to follow on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. The East African this week is focusing on Sudan. At least there is a light at the end of a tunnel. Right now they're meeting in Egypt for a happy medium and a peace deal. ICC has started a probe into war crimes and crimes against humanity as horrors emerge from Darfur. Overlapping peace processes have barely produced results, and neighbors are worried of a full-scale civil war that will increase their refugee burden and security threats. That is the current state of play as far as these two men are concerned. Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah Burhan and rival Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. And we do hope, of course, following the IGAD meeting that was held recently, presided over by President William Ruto, and this one of Egypt will come and yield something finally. Kenya loses 21 billion shillings on demo day as Nairobi Security Exchange activity dips. President Ruto is under pressure to save economy as rival sides dig in row over cost of living. That story continues on page 10 of the East African this week. And Huru's tough assignment in DR Congo peace. EAC is banking on the former Kenyan president to return the warring parties to dialogue. This story continues on page 6 of the East African. And you can follow the rest of the details there, looking at the teaser on the money segment, a stitch in time for East African textile sector. And markets also profitable umeme on hiring spree. And also you have opinion on how Rwanda can use foreign direct investment flows. All that tucked away in the recent copy of the East African. Taifa Leo, ni vitisho hapa kule, serikali yaambia Raila dhubutu uone mara hii, huku upinzani ukionekana kutotishika kuhusu maandamano. Rais asema atasafirisha wafadhili wa maandamano. Wanasiasa wa KK makanisani kulaani maandamano. Kindiki aonye Raila na wafuasi wake mtajuta. Kuria andika mtandaoni patakufa mtu. That is a story that you want to follow on page 2. And of course, we shall be discussing this and a raft of other issues as well with our panelists. We're here holding court this morning with Farah Malim, who is a Member of Parliament of Dadaab. We are joined also by Dr. Makalimuli, who is a Member of Parliament of Kitui Central. Danson Mugatana, Senator of Bomet, Senator of Tana River, should say, and Senator of Bomet, Hilary Segei, also will be joining us momentarily to thrash out some of his issues as well. But before we see their faces, this is what Ozone has drawn in the Star this morning. Bottom-up violence. And you can see this is Right Honorable Raila Odinga and President William Ruto. And of course, in the middle there is the police security officers there with their batons, serious at work, beating Kenyans. And also, we have seen 14 lives so far have been lost during these demonstrations, where the human rights have been raising also their voices, condemning this particular extra forces that and brutality from police that has been meted out on some of the peaceful demonstrators as well. Well, I want to hark you back a bit and show you how standard or what was holding way back for the Kenya Kamkunji rally boats. And this is how the rallies went down as well. Makalimuli, if you may refresh your memory, you can remember Moite Shikuku and others picked on way And this was for the Kenya Kamukunji rally, which aborted. Still, the freedom of expression. We can also discuss that particular Mandamano bill with you as well. But good morning, good to see you.
Morning, Liba. Hope your weekend was fine.
Mine was fine.
And good morning, viewers. Mine was fine, but as usual, I was down in Kitui. I go to see my people.
Okay.
You know, Liba, anytime we say our people are suffering, people think we are just talking politics. Far from the truth. Friday, I sat in my office from 9 in the morning up to 9 in the evening.
Yes.
Just listening to what people are saying. A walk-in, walk-out situation. And I can tell you for sure, people are suffering the bound. It's time leaders in this country listen to the voice of the people. Because unless we do that, we are likely to have serious challenges. It would be very unfortunate if we see Kenyans actually losing their lives as a result of what is happening. You know, people are saying they have no food. People have serious challenges with paying school fees. People have serious challenges with medical bills. People have challenges burying their dead. So it's a very common problem. And anytime you talk to them, they are saying that they are not lazy. They want to work, but there are no opportunities. Our children have gone to school. We have sold our land. We have sold everything to take them to school. They have their degrees. They have no job. And as a leader, anytime you sit there, you really feel frustrated that despite the investment which parents have done to their children, not much is happening either from the opposition side or from the government side in terms of creating jobs. And that's why, for me, when I see this hardline stance coming from both sides, both the government and the opposition, I get very worried because the economy is getting serious beating in terms of economic activities. And you know, when nothing happening on the economic front, generally, you will not expect many things to change. You will not expect jobs to be created. You will not expect people to have money in their pockets. And I don't know, even though people are saying we want to collect more taxes, I can tell you for sure, when the economic activities are not taking place, you like it or not, you will not be able to collect any tax. And that's why I've just quickly scanned through the papers, and I can see the kind of position Kenya Kwanza government is taking. Is a very unfortunate position where the church is saying, why can't you sit down and talk? Where the UN is saying it's time for dialogue. Where us in the opposition, we are saying the government needs to listen to the people. And you can see the government is taking a very firm stance that for them, talking means handshake. I don't think anybody has said that the opposition wants handshake at all. We're just saying, can people sit down for the sake of this country and talk and agree on way forward? Not really necessarily agreeing that one side joins the government, but agreeing that we want I think all along there's been this talk about we want a very strong opposition. And I think that's the kind of opposition they are getting. So why can't they think of a way of coming to the table, agree on how do we save this their situation, but at the same time, we retain the position of very strong opposition, and we have a government which is effective in terms of delivering to Kenyans. And more so, thinking of how to cushion Kenyans. Kenyans are really suffering, I'm telling you. And this is across the political divide. When time you interact with the Kenyans, even those who voted for Kenya Kwanza government, you've seen last week's demonstrations all over the place. They were not only in the opposition zones, they were even in the Kenya Kwanza zones. Some very unexpected areas where you couldn't imagine that in Nyeri people would be protesting. Where nobody would imagine that places like Nakuru people would be protesting. And more so in areas where we have Kenya Kwanza members of parliament, meaning that there are people who really are pro-government. But now this is a situation where you can see now they are coming up in arms And it's a very clear demonstration of the fact that what is now happening in the country is a serious problem because it cuts across. People who voted for you less than a month ago, are telling you we are suffering. We are in the process of dying because of the challenges we are facing. I think it's time everybody listen to them. I don't want my colleagues who are members of parliament. You saw yesterday there was that meeting where Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group and governors and senators came together, and they are saying now they want to come up with a counter strategy to tell Kenyans what they have done. That's good. It's not bad. But you know, really, even if you come with a counter strategy and people are saying we are suffering, don't be surprised to see these guys go to the ground and the bar. They had to face it very rough. You know, the other day you saw a few of them being chased away by wananchi that we don't want to listen to you. Don't be surprised to see many of them facing the same fate. You go to your constituents and they tell you we can't vote for you because you made life very difficult for us by voting for the bill, for the finance bill. And then in the process, things will get worse. But my just basic appeal to our leaders, and more so the Kenya Kwanza government, please soften your stance and listen to what Kenyans are saying. Nobody wants to fight in this country. Nobody wants to see the police shooting at our people. The other day I got very disappointed that we lost a lot of people in Mulolongo. And when the CS routes went there, instead of even conveying condolences to our people who lost their lives, he was very concerned about the metals and the flowers which had been destroyed in the demonstration. Imagine a whole CS comes to an area, and instead of even telling our people, Paul, for losing your people, the only thing you talk about is flowers which were destroyed by the demonstrators. You talk about road grays which were destroyed by the voters, and you say the cost of this will be about 700 million to Kenyans. What is the cost of the lives which were lost? Nobody valued that, and nobody seems to be concerned. So if you really want to save this country, we can't afford to have a country where people have been killed, either by the police or by people who have been paid to kill them, and then nobody comes up and says this is wrong. And when a whole minister of the government comes, you are more concerned about metal grills and flowers which had been destroyed. By yesterday they had been fixed. Back now, traffic is back to normal. Have we brought back those who died, the 6 people who died, back to life? And it will never happen. Imagine the way the families are hurting. You have your daughter who was just in a market, going to buy bread in a shop, and the next minute your daughter is dead. And when you take her to hospital, she dies of a bullet. Somebody fired a bullet and she's shot. So you wonder, even the law doesn't allow live bullets when it comes to demonstrations. It allows possibly rubber or this water they keep on showering us with, or tear gas. But killing the bar, let's just be human beings. We are human beings. Life is precious. It's not something you just let go the way you want to do it. And that's why we are saying you listen to the voice of the church, listen to the voice of everybody. We are saying, can people sit down and talk, agree? And talking doesn't mean a handshake. Nobody's interested in a handshake. Personally, I don't entertain it. I don't support it. But I want to see peace in this country. I want to see a situation where people will be able to demonstrate peacefully. Nobody will destroy anybody else's property. No police ends up shooting individuals. We are now, people have been paid from the other side to be part of the demonstrations and then cause chaos so that it appears that demonstrations are violent.
Thank you.
On a serious note, we can do better as a country.
We can do better.
We can do better as a country.
All right, let's see from Hilary Sigei, Senator of Bomet as well. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Dibal.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
This time forth, you're not fresh from Bomet.
No, yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator.
I'm within.
You're
today.
within.
I was within over the weekend.
Yes.
And this was because we had a PG over Saturday.
Indeed.
For the better part of the day, we had our parliamentary group from morning running through, so it wasn't possible for me to travel to the county. I'm happy to be back today. Of course, I've listened to my colleague.
Yes.
Lamenting I would say so.
He's
The
been
loss
lamenting
of lives that we lost, just like every other Kenyan. I also feel sad and quite unfortunate indeed that we had to lose a good number of Kenyans in the course of last week. The most unfortunate thing, and I would like to correct from the very onset my colleague, is that we are mourning the death of our dear Kenyans. But I want to correct the use of the term demonstration. We are no longer demonstrating. The Azimio group are no longer demonstrating Debal. These are riots. These are civil disobedience. This is actually, I would say, domestic terrorism. And it's so unfortunate that we had to lose the Kenyans we lost last week. We lost a lot of property being stolen, destruction, and business completely was closed down. I mean, for a moment I sat back and asked myself, is this really what we should be experiencing and witnessing as Kenyans in the 2023, coming out of an election which was very peaceful, and 6 months down the line we were where we were on last week. That was not the very best, especially when we still purport to say we are a democratic state, because being a democratic country, we have a democratically elected government in office, and also we have an opposition. And what they did last week was not part of what we would call the role of the opposition in checking the government of the day. Those were no demonstrations anymore. Those were acts of terrorism. Those were acts of complete anarchy, which, as we mourn the loss of many Kenyans, we also feel the pain of the business community that closed shop, that lost property, that completely could not believe that that was Kenya of today. We must call it what it is, and we must say, going forward, it is not one of those things that we would entertain. For someone to go out of his or her way to demonstrate, there must be something, a bigger concern than what happened. The people that went to destroy property in Mlolongo and Kitengela, we were reliably informed were not residents of Kitengela or Mlolongo. I have not known the people coming from my colleague's backyard, the Kambani area, to be people who can do that which was witnessed in the Mlolongo and Kitengela over the weekend. And it is true that if there were people ferried from other places to that place, that is exactly what happened. And similarly, Nairobi, the same thing. And what we are saying is that if our colleagues indeed want to be in opposition, they have a role to play. Their entry is full. They cannot purport to, as at now, say they are complaining about the cost of living and doing what exactly they did. It is not that anymore. And so let's call a spade a spade. If they want us to debunk the cost of living, that is exactly what the government of the day is doing. If you are to be very objective, Debal, what we are doing as a government is to bring down the cost of living. What they are doing is to destroy Kenya. And we can't allow it anymore. It's gone overboard.
Right.
It's beyond.
So I want to follow up on the issue of the PG meeting on Saturday.
Yes.
And it seems also that, yes, the president is very categorical right now that he's not condoning the demonstrations. And this was a sort of an ad hoc PG meeting.
No, it was a normal parliamentary group meeting.
A scheduled one, or because of this demonstration?
It was a scheduled one.
It was a scheduled one.
It was a scheduled one.
But as you can see, the president is calling upon the legislators to go back to the constituencies, to the counties, and make sure that yes, they are watching over the demonstration. What does that really mean? Because we can see when we look at the front page of the Taifa Leo, we have Kuria andika mtandaoni patakufa mtu. Patakufa mtu, what does that really mean? Is it a threat? Because now this coming from also a CS saying patakufa mtu. If someone, you know...
Remember, we've had a discussion about CS Kuria here before on his tweets and his commentaries. He's entitled to comment, tweet, and say in the best of the language that he understands what he feels at any given time. I wouldn't want to get into that, but when he says so, I mean, it cannot be a brief of a PG to go and patakufa mtu out there. As I told you, this was a scheduled normal PG where, among other issues, this became a subject of discussion. And Kenya Kwanza is a consultative government, as you have all been witnessing from the time we went out to campaign to where we are at the moment. It was part of the normal consultation, and one of the things, of course, that was discussed now was the effects of the riots. As I told you, I'm not going to be calling it any more demonstration. Article 37 provides what demonstration entails. This is not one of them. So
how do we get clarity that there we have the Azimio side saying, you know, you Kenya Kwanza have sponsored the goons.
Yes.
Kenya Kwanza saying that the goons is being sponsored from Azimio.
That is their story, and that is what they have all along been saying.
So we don't know who is actually, everyone is blaming each other, raising accusatory fingers. So how do we know that also these peaceful demonstrations have not been sort of, you know, taken over by goons who are bankrolled from the other side?
You just misquoting the whole thing. It is not peaceful demonstration. Did you witness any peace last week? We didn't. Did you witness any police charging towards them? It was the other way around. And what the law provides is you are entitled to peacefully demonstrate, picket, assemble, and submit petitions. That is exactly what Article 37 says. But the end of that right is the beginning of my right also to be protected by the same law, Article 24. I am entitled to also have my property protected, my life, and that is the law. It doesn't then say you are free to demonstrate and destroy property and kill people and, you know, cause chaos the way they did. And therefore, if it gets to a point where I am at the risk of being attacked, killed, and my property taken away, what do? I protect myself within the same law. What I'm therefore saying is that if it is not peaceful demonstration anymore, which is the case, it is something else.
Thank you.
And this something else is what the law also allows the other party.
Let me allow Faramali
himself.
A rejoinder.
You know, Dibal, what the Senator Sige is doing is demonstrating the high level of addedness of who we were talking earlier about. You know, when he says demonstrations, he calls them civil disobedience, riots. How I wish that was.
But it was.
Because if that is the case, they will not be able to govern. They will not be able to govern, I'm telling you. Because what is happening, wherever there has been deaths, it is the police who are fueling these deaths by shooting at the people. You know, he says the Kamba are not known to be that violent. I think he needs to read the history of the Kamba community. The Kamba community is a very patient community, but when they run out of their patience, I'm telling you, ask our neighbors, you can't contain them. When they run out of their patience, you can't contain them. We are dangerous. I'm telling you, with our arrows and bows.
I hope you're not justifying the fact that
look at the history of the Kamba community. They can be very patient. You can roll them over the road. But when they say enough is enough, and that's what we are saying. As a community, what you saw last week, the government needs to be very careful, because when you see us get to that level, it means things are getting out of control. What people are saying is, where we are today, we don't mind dying today, because even if we stay without doing anything, we will definitely die because of the problems we are going through. And that's what we were saying earlier. How I wish when the Sergei and team met, they would have looked at this problem from the other side. That why is it that we have just been elected less than a year, and within almost now, I think next month they will be now clearing 1 year. And before we clear a year, Everybody seems to be saying we are not doing things the right way. Is it that we started on the wrong footing? Can we sit and look at what is happening and see how we can kind of save the situation, so that even as we move to the future, we have our whole 5 years to serve? Because I think what we have been saying, and we have been saying many times, the fact that they are the people who have the instruments of power, it means that they are the people governing. Our work is just to provide checks and balances. And I can tell you, nobody is interested in handshakes. There are so much concerns about handshake and not looking at the real problem. Let's address the real problem. We'll be helping this country.
Right. And of course, the issue of the handshake was broached also in this
parliamentary group.
Yeah. You'll give us more information.
Yes, indeed.
But let's just hear from Pharaoh, and then also from Center.
I also want us to address later on what is just said in his last statement. Let us address the real problem. And I want us to address today in this conversation the real problem. Please. So you will allow me to comment on that, so that we deal with the real problem. Because the problem is not about what he said. Nobody is interested in handshake. We are interested in bringing back the cost of living. We are interested in enhancing the livelihoods of the Kenyans. We are interested in creating more jobs. We are interested in meeting the commitments that we made for Kenyans in the course of our campaigns. And I would really love we discuss that one, so that Kenyans can understand that the problem is not what is being depicted by Azimio. The problem is one man within Azimio who is hungry for power. That is Raila Amolo Odinga.
All right. Father Malimu, do you think he's hungry for power? Good morning, good to see you. Up and early today.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Good to see you.
You can look also last week. I know also you're a businessman. Would you tell us how you've been adversely affected also by these demonstrations?
Yeah.
Especially in the CBD.
I think it's important for us to understand the context within which we're trying to bring about changes from all sides. From the government side, their responsibility is to govern this country so that they can win the trust of Kenyans and get another term again. And the right of recall is always after 5 years. You determine whether you had a good government or you had a bad government after 5 years. You throw them out. If they did not perform, you bring them back if they perform. So everybody has a responsibility. Now, nobody in politics is supposed to oversee the execution of the responsibility of another one. For example, when we were going for elections and there was a digital versus the analog in 2013, and it was like you will get every small child in standard one is going to have is an iPad or a computer. And then, of course, that never happened. We will grow the economy by double digit. We shall create 500,000 jobs. We will, there's all sorts of undertakings and promises that people give. It was not in our responsibility and mandate as those days, NASA. Were we NASA that time, or what are we?
Yeah.
We were NASA. Or COD. We were COD initially. We were COD, yes. It's not in our responsibility ourselves and our mandate and our job to go out into the streets and say the Jubilee side is not executing, is not performing on its own undertakings. All we need to do is just tell the people, look, choices have consequences. You chose them, you suffer the consequences. Hoping that after 5 years, Kenyans are going to reject them, which I believe myself they were rejected in 2017. So for us now in the opposition to go out there and say that you must execute on your undertakings and your promises. If you don't do that, you're going to go out into the streets, led by the political leadership of Azimio, which I'm part of. To say the least, is in my opinion, a denigration of the very spirit and the very, idea and ideals of democracy. If this thing is spontaneous, the way it used to happen in other places, whereby the masses in Korogocho and everywhere else, without any political incitements, will come out into the open and say, we cannot accept this, is a popular revolt. And by the way, in modern history, no popular revolt achieved anything. Look at what happened in Syria. They've lost more than 1 million lives. They've got 5 million or 6 million of their people outside the country as refugees, and Bashar Assad is still there. They did it in Egypt. It never helped. They did it in that popular revolt, a lot of it funded and supported by Western intelligence services in Libya. It never achieved anything for the common Libyan. The common Libyan was so much better off before they began coming up with those protests and resistances and everything. Today, Libya is 30 years away from where it was when Gaddafi was there. Iraq, the same thing, is gone to hell. Yemen is gone to hell. Somalia is gone to hell. So, if anybody tells you that going out into the streets brings any solution, going out in the streets brings no solution. Because then you create a situation for anarchy. The moment that anarchy takes roots, and those people turn themselves right now into gangs, criminal gangs, the way they have it in Somalia when they had the warlords and everything else. And every region is going to have a warlord. This political class you see here, our relevance will go, and most of us are going to be killed one way or the other by the same ones who are from our own regions. People are fighting Siad Barre in Somalia. The same guys who are fighting Siad Barre in Somalia started fighting internecine family at the end of it, and most of them, they were killed by their own kith and kin. Because if we encourage the kind of things that are right now being encouraged by the political class from my side, the next thing you know is that there is no center that's holding. And if the center does not hold, you think this political class right now, Dr. Ari and myself and Mungatana, who are opinion leaders and giving opinions to Kenyans, are going to become relevant? No. A Form 4 dropout or a Standard 8 product dropout who can get a machete to knock off people's heads, chop off people's heads, is going to have more relevance in the community. Because then you have created this thing into small kingdoms and fiefdoms and warlordism and the rest of it. So instead of anarchy, the way things are here, and we're going exactly the way Somalia went from the beginning. The same people who got rid of Siad Barre and were fighting Siad Barre because the dictator, he wanted him to leave. And people were pleading those days and saying, look, he's on his way out, give him just time. No, we want to arrest him and take him to court. Where are they? They were all killed by their own people at the end of it. Where is Aidid Farah? Where is Abdurrahman, who was there with him? Where is Omar Jess, who were the people who started the fights against Siad Barre? Where are all those warlords, the warlords of all the regions? So I don't see what we are doing right now within the opposition circles in the form of demonstrations or riots or whatever you want to call it is going to bring to the country here. Business is suffering like hell. And by the way, you're better off with an autocratic rule than anarchy. Once there's anarchy, there is no control. It literally disappears. Right. So basically, the way I see it myself, to improve and grow and nurture democracy, we should sit back and tell Kenyans, choices have consequences. You chose these people in the KK. Look at how the cost of living is. Look at how this and this is. So that by the time we get to 2027, 70% of the population are with us because they are looking for change. They cannot wait for the change. But if you go out into the streets and tell them you must deliver on your promises, why should you? You should be taking advantage of the fact that these people are not delivering on their promises so that you can take the mandate away from them. That's how democracy works. That's how democracy works. You see, Donald Trump tried it for once, and the Republicans are regretting it forever when they try to take over and storm what they call the Congress. They regret every bit of it, and every Republican is trying to distance himself from it. And they've gone back now to say, Biden is corrupt. Biden has gotten us into a war. Biden is taking us into a third world war. You know what I mean? And these Democrats basically have no morals, they have no values. They're looking at LGBTQ and everything that they're doing basically, and what they're using right now. Donald Trump now is a hero within the states because of the manner in which the Democrats conducted themselves in the governance. He didn't get this by demonstrating or trying to take over the Congress, no. Or trying to take over White House, no. They tried it once, made a mistake, and they regret that mistake for the rest of their lives. So in my opinion, what I see is that we should not be doing what we're doing now. You know, putting down the rails, destroying property, destroying business. Where does that take you? How does that bring life, what do you call the cost of living down? The other thing is, why can't we face the hypocrisy of politicians like me and Chergai and Mungantana and Daktari here when we say one thing and we say another thing again? It's on full clip when the leader of my coalition was saying that the cost of living is going to rise. You cannot say that cost of living should not rise. You cannot say this and that should. And here he is now exactly the opposite of that and saying that the cost of living must be brought down, otherwise you're going to go out into the streets.
Thank you. We're coming to a station break, and of course when we come back, we've heard from the wisdom of Farah, harking back and giving us examples as well around the region on how sometimes we can teeter just on the edge of a precipice as far as security is concerned, looking at the example of Somalia as well and the nations around us. When we circle back, we shall hear from Danson Mungatana as well. The president is calling on the legislators to go back to their counties, their constituencies, so that they may take care of their properties. What does that mean? We'll unpack that on the other side of a break.